Check, check. Hello. Thanks everyone for attending. It's been a fun few days, 2 days. Appreciate people tuning in. We're very excited about this. My name is LeClair. I'm the director of Bitcoin strategy at Metaplanet, and I'm here with Simon, the CEO and leader of Metaplanet. So I guess just to start it off, maybe just a quick backdrop of the origin story of Metaplanet and how this came to be and why we're sitting here talking about Bitcoin in Abu Dhabi.
So I'm Simon Gerovich. I'm the president of Metaplanet. We're listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Thanks to Bitcoin, we are the best performing stock out of 4,000 companies in Japan this year. I started my career at Goldman Sachs in Tokyo. I was an equity derivatives trader, and after doing that for about 5 years, decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, left Goldman, and ended up starting a Pan-Asian hotel business. We don't have much time, so I'm going to fast forward a bit to COVID. And as you can imagine, COVID was very difficult for businesses in the hospitality sector. In 3 of our 4 markets, we were forcibly closed. And meanwhile, I had time to watch YouTube videos, and I saw Michael Saylor tell us the roadmap for the Bitcoin Treasury strategy. I personally have been involved in Bitcoin for some time. I like to joke that I bought Bitcoin in Japan on a very famous exchange called Mt. Gox. So it wasn't the best initial exposure to Bitcoin, but it did get me excited about the potential, and I learned a lot over the next few years. But there was always something in the back of my mind wanting to bring Bitcoin together with my business. It was always a side passion. And so during COVID, managed to convince our shareholders and board that we should try something new. And we decided to sell all of our hotels, save for one, and put that all into Bitcoin. And that was the beginning of our story in April of this year.
So we're sitting here today. The Bitcoin strategy started in April of 2024. Today, the balance sheet value of the Bitcoin is about 8 times the entire market cap back in April, which is sort of an astounding stat. Maybe just a walkthrough of what the operations and financing have been so far. How have we gone about this Bitcoin strategy? And I think there's an interesting twist to how we've gone about it so far.
I think the real innovation here, and I can't claim credit for being the first to think of it. We have to nod our heads to Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. But the benefit of being in a public vehicle is you can use all of the capital market tools available to you to raise capital to buy Bitcoin. And so in April of this year, the first thing we did was we had some outstanding warrants that were part of the capital structure. We facilitated a transfer of those warrants to some strategic investors, those who very much understand the world of Bitcoin. It was only about $10 million back then. And so I felt a little bit embarrassed on stage in Nashville when we were on stage together with Semler Scientific and MicroStrategy talking about the Treasury strategy, and we only had about $10 million of Bitcoin. Since then, we did something, I would say, a little bit unusual and goes against conventional wisdom, which is we did a rights issue. A rights issue is where existing shareholders of the company can subscribe to new shares. And so what we did was, for every share you owned, you had the ability to buy 1 additional share. At that time, it was at a small discount to the market, and you would think that normally a company that does a rights issue, the stock price should fall to, in this case, the average of the rights issue price and the share price prior to the stock going X. So what actually happened was the stock went up. It went up because shareholders in Japan, thought this is my chance to give this company money that they can use to buy Bitcoin. It's very different to asking someone or someone discovering you and buying your shares through their online broker versus when they actually give you cash that you then productively use to buy an asset that they love. And so we had roughly 14,000 Japanese shareholders subscribe in the rights issue, and they now have become our fans locally in Japan. It's helped us rise from about 5,000 shareholders to now over 50,000 shareholders. And I think our objective, over the next year is how do we grow that number from 50,000 to 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 shareholders.
One of the kind of signposts in our journey, after the rights issue and after surpassing 1,000 Bitcoin, was we in October adopted a new kind of key performance indicator. And it's not original. It was also kind of following in the footsteps of MicroStrategy. But we adopted BTC yield. So maybe for people unaware or not familiar, yield in Bitcoin sometimes maybe there's some PTSD there, but maybe explain what that is and why we're using it as an objective, and also maybe a bigger idea outside of us, outside of MicroStrategy or Semler Scientific. Why what does the future kind of look like in a world where we think we're going?
So BTC yield is a wonderful new metric, which I think is going to redefine the way that traditional analysts look at companies. Up until now, and having been in TradFi for so long, earnings per share seems to be the be-all and end-all. But how do you value a Bitcoin treasury company? If a Bitcoin treasury company doesn't have that much in terms of earnings, does that mean the company can't trade at a premium to its NAV? And so BTC yield, the definition of BTC yield is the increase in Bitcoin per share on a period-by-period basis. It's a really good measure for, are you increasing the amount of Bitcoin that the company owns on a per-share basis on behalf of shareholders? Now, it's important because dilution generally is considered to be a bad thing. If your company is a $100 million market cap and you raise another $100 million, you're diluting everyone by 50%. But if that money can then be used productively towards buying Bitcoin and your Bitcoin per share goes up, then that's a really good thing to judge yourself by. So BTC yield is a KPI which we adopted. I think we're the second company in the world after MicroStrategy to adopt BTC yield, and that is something that we're going to really focus on going forward. When we're thinking about how to raise money, what are the various structures available to us, we want to maximize BTC yield.
So when we're kind of looking back in the past 15 years of Bitcoin, it went from kind of this dark net money, the Mt. Gox days, the Silk Road days, to kind of VC speculation, retail speculation. I would say 2020 was the first year of kind of the macro. It became a serious macro asset, and I would say 2024 is kind of the first year that it's kind of a real institutional asset. The career risk is gone post BlackRock, ETFs, the options have rolled out, FASB accounting and fair value accounting in the United States. So one of the interesting ideas is, kind of how does Bitcoin maturing as an asset? The ETFs were a big step, but the ETFs can, despite being the most successful ETF launch of all time, there's massive pools of capital that can't buy ETFs. So one of the kind of interesting theses, and MicroStrategy has led the way here, is the idea of securitizing Bitcoin. Right, and there's really in equity markets and debt markets. So maybe just walk through how you view that native to Japan. And so far we've embarked mainly through equity issuance, right? Issuing Bitcoin-backed equities to new pools of capital. So I guess just how do you think of that at large?
I think the exciting thing to think about is that there is massive pools of capital in the world. And each investor has a different type of investments that they can make. If you're a debt investor, you can't invest in Bitcoin, you can't invest in equities, and so MicroStrategy's convertible bonds have been able to tick that box. People have been able to get the downside protection of the convertible bond structure. It's a debt instrument, so they can invest in it, and they get the upside from Bitcoin. In Japan, we're thinking along the similar ways. Currently, we've only sold equity. We've raised some straight bonds, but down the road, the idea is to do the same thing. In Japan, there's over $10 trillion of debt issued by the government and corporations. The real yield on most of that debt is negative. So what is the point for an investor to invest in a bond that generates a negative yield? The opportunity for us and for others like us going forward is create an instrument that provides them with the downside protection they're looking for, but then also gives them Bitcoin returns. And so that is something incredibly exciting. I think the other thing to mention is there are ETFs around the world. We've just been included in 4 ETFs, something that I think we were surprised to see so early on in our journey. But the reality is that if you are an ETF and you include MicroStrategy, hopefully Metaplanet going forward, you will be able to outperform those that don't. And so you do want to make sure you're ahead of the curve and participate in stories that provide that upside that comes with the Bitcoin exposure.
To pull on the thread a bit on the bond market, as you were saying, one of the biggest knocks that the traditional financial world or maybe legacy media has had about Bitcoin for the longest time is it's far too volatile. And that is kind of a knock, right? It's like, don't touch it, it's too volatile. And I think us as well as MicroStrategy and others have taken a different approach to that, right? Where volatility is actually something that we don't want to avoid. We're actually optimizing for, and it's something to lean into. And that also, that's really the strategy with Bitcoin and the bond market with these convertible bonds. So I guess just your background as a derivatives trader, Black and Scholes models and options theory. How do you think about that? And I guess just how do you think of that world going forward? And maybe what's the response from shareholders or just the theory of this?
I think the worst thing in the world to invest in is probably a really boring, low volatile power company or cement company or transportation company that trades at 5 vol or 10 vol. It's stable. It barely goes up, barely goes down, but it's not a particularly good use of your capital. What you want to invest in is things that have high vol. High vol because it means the stock could potentially go down, but it could also go up a lot. The innovation with convertible bonds meeting the world of Bitcoin is that because Bitcoin vol is so high, and in our case, Metaplanet stock vol is so high, we'll be able to issue convertible debt, and there will be investors out there that want to buy it. They're happy to give up the guaranteed yield, so we'll probably issue it at a 0% coupon, but in exchange, they want that embedded call option. That embedded call option has tremendous value. And up until now, there hasn't been really a way to monetize the volatility of your stock and the volatility of Bitcoin in a structure like that. So that's something incredibly exciting and an innovation, again, that MicroStrategy has set forth for the world to follow, and something that, as a company in Japan, we intend to pursue in due course as well.
At the beginning, you mentioned we were so far, year to date, fingers crossed, we've been the best performing equity in the Japanese market. Market cap around 15 million to 600 million today. But not only that, but the most volatile equity in Japan, and that's not something that we actually shy away from. There's also the sheer liquidity, right? And so I think one of the interesting things about the Bitcoin strategy, if you really lean into it, right, is Bitcoin trades 24/7, 365, right? So in the minds of a shareholder or a trader or arbitrager, the fair value of our common equity would change tick for tick every second of the day. It would change on weekends even when the stock's not trading. So I guess just, if you're thinking about this as a corporate treasurer, as a CFO, as a CEO, what is that? What doors has that opened up, right? MicroStrategy leans on convertible debt. They also lean on ATM equity issuance. And so we recently, embarked upon that for the first time. Maybe just explain that. We don't have an ATM structure in Japan. The U.S. capital markets have, probably the best capital markets in the world, definitely, in terms of the flexibility. But there's kind of maybe a novel way to get around that. So maybe just an explanation there, and also just kind of the trends of liquidity in Metaplanet stock over the last month or two.
We're definitely very humbled by the interest that the markets have taken, in Metaplanet. As I mentioned earlier, we're the best performing stock in Japan this year. In terms of liquidity, we consistently trade as one of the top 30, 40 stocks a day in Japan out of 4,000 companies. I think the reason perhaps for that is up until now there hasn't been a really good way for Japanese retail investors to trade Bitcoin. I was joking with a friend yesterday. There are a lot of billboards in Japan with Bitcoin signs and whatnot. From the time that someone sees a Bitcoin logo, learns about it, and wants to buy Bitcoin, it could take 4, 6, 8 weeks. Why is that? Because they've got very strict KYC requirements. You need to send in your signed copy of your application documents. They send a postcard back to you. When the postcard arrives, you have to sign it and send it back. It's very analog. Versus if you're a public company and you position yourself as being a tax-efficient, leveraged exposure to Bitcoin entity, it's very easy for someone to make the decision to get involved. And so as a result of that, I think we have a lot of great new Japanese investors and also those further abroad who really enjoy trading the stock on a day-to-day basis. That's beneficial to us because it means that when we look forward to raising more capital, what investors look at is, do you have the right market cap? Do you have enough liquidity? And both of those things are now coming into the right strike zone.
Any comment on the moving strike warrants? And
so the benefit of the U.S. securities markets are that you have this innovation called the ATM structure. And for those of you who may not be familiar, an ATM structure is where a company can issue primary shares and sell them into the market. And so MicroStrategy just launched a $21 billion ATM. They're selling 3, 5, 7% of the daily volume every day, new shares into the market, and then that cash can go directly towards buying Bitcoin. In Japan, we can't do that. There's no ATM structure. So we announced a moving strike warrant transaction a few weeks ago, which effectively works the same way. And so we'll be able to raise capital quite quickly, starting from next week, and begin to grow our Bitcoin reserves.
So I guess we got 2 minutes left. Looking into 2025, I've gone from 0 to 1,100 Bitcoin in 2024. Looking ahead, there's a shareholder meeting later this week back in Tokyo. What are they voting on? And I guess what's our target roadmap for 2025?
So I head back to Tokyo tonight. We have a shareholder meeting on Friday, and one of the resolution items which our shareholders will be voting on is increasing the authorized capital of the company. And the authorized shares allows you to increase capital, sell additional equity securities up to a certain threshold. And that threshold in Japan can be 4 times your current paid-up number of shares. And so you're able to dilute or increase capital by 4x on quite a regular basis. We came from a relatively low base before the summer, but now at our current level, we'll be able to issue over $1 billion of equity in 2025. And so I think our goal, our objective, is to get to 10,000 Bitcoin in 2025, and that would place us as one of the top 3 to 5 corporate holders of listed corporate holders of Bitcoin in the world.
1 minute left. I guess free-for-all question. How do you view Bitcoin as a corporate treasury asset in general in the future, 10 years out, 20 years out? Is this a fringe thing in 2035, or does every company in the world have Bitcoin to some extent?
Yeah, on stage in Nashville, we acknowledged the inspiration from MicroStrategy, and I think very humbled at this event to be approached by quite a few other companies, one in India, one in Singapore, and one in France, who said that our story inspired them. And so I do hope in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin world, we aren't competitive with one another, that more and more corporations around the world realize the benefits of owning Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. It's a very exciting 4 years coming up, and I think we're all very optimistic that Bitcoin is going to have an exciting growth.
Amazing. I thank you for everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks very much.
Is your company ready for the next evolution in financial strategy? Bitcoin for Corporations is your partner in securing the future of your business. With exclusive membership benefits, our comprehensive masterclass, and a network of trusted service providers, we provide the insights and resources to help you incorporate Bitcoin into your financial strategy, ensuring stability and long-term value. Strengthen your business. Innovate with confidence. Bitcoin for Corporations, protecting your treasury and positioning you for the future.